They met in a small town, in a place where love wasn't supposed to last. He was cautious, afraid to commit. She was radiant, full of life, and persistent enough to break down his walls. For 6 months, their love was real. Laughter, late-night walks, whispered promises. But then, she left. What began as a long-distance love story slowly unraveled into silence, betrayal, and heartbreak. This is not just David and Amelia's story. This is the story of every person who has loved someone, who stopped loving them back. And as you listen, ask yourself, what would you do if the person you loved most began to slip away? Stay with me until the end, because the lesson in this story might just change the way you see love forever. Before we dive in, make sure you subscribe for more powerful emotional stories. Hit the like button if you believe true love deserves loyalty. And tell me in the comments, have you ever been in a long-distance relationship?
StorySphere, where every story breathes.
David wasn't looking for love. He was the kind of man who stayed on the edges of the crowd, quiet, content with his little world. Amelia was the opposite, bright, lively, and unafraid to take chances. They met by accident, a spilled coffee, a nervous laugh, an apology that turned into a conversation. And just like that, two strangers became something more. But David resisted. He told himself not to fall, not to commit. He had been hurt before. He knew what distance could do to hearts. Yet Amelia, she had a way of disarming him. The way she smiled, the way she leaned closer when she spoke, the way she made the world feel lighter. And slowly, almost against his will, David began to fall. But David had no idea. This love would be tested in ways he never imagined. Because love can bloom in the same town, but surviving across distance, that's where the story begins. For 6 months, their love blossomed like spring. They shared everything. Quiet walks, long talks, silly arguments that ended in laughter. David had never known comfort like this. Amelia had a way of making him feel seen. She didn't just love him, she believed in him. But love, no matter how strong in the beginning, always meets the test of time. And soon, distance would ask the hardest question of them all. Was their bond strong enough to survive when miles came between them? The day came when Amelia had to leave for school. She packed her bags, hugged him tight, and promised nothing will change. David stood there, watching her disappear into the crowd, her figure shrinking into the distance. Nothing will change, she had said. But everything did. The first weeks were sweet. Calls every night, texts every morning. They shared jokes, sent pictures, talked about their days as if they were still side by side. But slowly, calls grew shorter, messages fewer. David told himself she was just busy. He wanted to believe distance was the only enemy. But deep down, he feared something else. When Amelia's phone broke, David didn't hesitate. He saved, sacrificed, and bought her a new one. She was touched, her eyes shining when he handed it to her. But the phone had its own flaw. It could send messages, but calls rarely worked. And so their voices grew silent. Their love lived in text alone. David poured his heart into every word. Amelia replied, but less and less. Still, David forgave. Every delay, every cold response. Because love to him was patience. But patience unreturned is a heavy burden to carry. Again and again, Amelia wronged him, ignored him, snapped at him. And again, David forgave. Friends told him to walk away. His heart told him to stay. Because when he loved completely. But every story of forgiveness has a limit. And every heart, no matter how gentle, can break. The cracks began to show. Missed calls, one-word replies, weeks of waiting for her attention. David's messages grew longer, Amelia's shorter. He began to wonder, was he talking to the same girl who once lit up his world, or to a stranger holding his heart carelessly in her hands? Then came the silence. Calls ignored, messages seen but unanswered. David's screen filled with unanswered attempts, 16 missed calls. Finally, a reply, "I slept." And yet David's heart whispered forgiveness again. "I'm glad you rested," he typed back. Even when her silence screamed, he answered with kindness. Love is supposed to fill your soul, but David's love had turned into loneliness. He was still there holding on. She was drifting, laughing in other places, giving her energy to everyone but him. And yet, he clung to the hope that one day she'd remember the boy who never left her side. One night, David stared at his phone. He wrote the words he never thought he'd write. His thumb hovered over send. Finally, he let them go. "I love you, but I can't keep loving alone." And with that, he set himself free. Letting go is never easy, but sometimes letting go isn't the end of love. It's the beginning of healing. David stopped waiting, stopped begging. He found himself again. The boy who loved music, books, laughter, and slowly, he realized the greatest love he had to protect was not her. It was himself. Maybe you've been where David was. If so, remember, love should never silence you. It should never make you beg. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away. This was David and Amelia's story, but it could be anyone's. Yours, mine, ours. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more stories of love, heartbreak, and healing. Like this video if you believe love should be mutual. And tell us in the comments, what's your breaking point? Your story matters. And sometimes your story can become someone else's survival guide.
StorySphere, where every story lives on.